Obsidian is a developer that for a long time has been synonymous with making some of the best RPGs out there. Just to name a few, Fallout New Vegas, South Park The Stick of Truth, KOTOR, just to name a few. The Outer Worlds, which I was actually quite a big fan of. The worst thing about that game, in my opinion, was that it was too short. But anyways, when they announced that they'd be making a game that was like their take on the Elder Scrolls, I was naturally very excited about it because Skyrim is one of my favorite games of all time. I love Bethesda's games. Starfield was a bit of a disappointment, but that's another story. Whole nother video. But anyways, if you enjoy this type of content and you want to see more game reviews down the line, consider touching the like button and subscribing and turning on that notification bell. I would greatly appreciate it. All right, let's move on with the video. Let's start with the things that I enjoyed about it. So the first thing I thought was pretty cool was the camp system. It reminds me a lot of kind of how it's done in Fallout 76, but I think better. Basically, you find these giant crystals, and you can go up to these crystals and you interact with them, and it sets up your camp where you can go and you can interact with your companions. You can rest for the night. You can enchant your weapons. You can upgrade your weapons, armor, what have you, everything there at your camp. And I thought that was a pretty cool feature in the game. And another thing that I really enjoyed about the game was the combat. I spent a lot of time playing as a mage build, just running around with a wand, zapping enemies with it, and forget what the book's called, but you run around with like a book in your hand. Got like 4 different spells that you can cast out of the book, and I just found it a lot of fun to run around and do that kind of stuff. But after a while, just doing that, it gets kind of stale. And that's really kind of where the things that I enjoyed about the game stop. So having this game be compared to Skyrim and Oblivion a lot, I was sitting there playing the game, comparing it, like, how does this stack up to Skyrim, which is one of my favorite games that it came out 14 years ago. And there's just so many things that it misses the mark on. The first thing that I think Avowed does very, very poorly is there are no, like the world physics are not great. They're just not great. Even compared to a 14-year-old game, you compare it to Oblivion, which is nearly 20 years old at this point, and Oblivion has better world physics. You can't walk up to anything and interact with anything like you want. It feels very constricting. In like Skyrim and Oblivion, you can run around, you can pick up whatever you want, you can knock things off tables, you can pick them up, you can throw them, you can like grab things and then move them around and stuff like that. If you hit things on a table, they move. In Avowed, there is none of that. There's none of that when it comes to physics for other items, as well as like arrow physics when you're shooting your bow in Avowed. Your arrows, they disappear. You shoot them and they're gone. Like, you shoot it straight up in the air, it's not coming back down. You're never seeing that. In Skyrim, you shoot an arrow up, wait a few seconds, comes right back down in front of you. Shoot it straight up. Same thing in Oblivion. It's like it's almost like they used hit scan arrows, which I would prefer if they didn't. But then there's also on the other side in Skyrim, say you shoot an arrow at a rock. It's going to bounce off that rock because an arrow's not going to get stuck into it. You shoot it into wood, it's going to stick into that wood like an arrow would. In Avowed, none of that. Like, it's going to stick into anything you shoot close quarters, pretty much. But yeah, just the physics there. When you're swimming in the water's completely unreactive to you swimming. If you shoot the water with like the little guns that you get, it's completely unreactive. Whereas in Skyrim, which is a almost 15-year-old game at this point, the physics are there. There's no excuse for Obsidian to not be putting these things in the game. Another major gripe I had with the game, which I've had with, I don't know if it's an issue necessarily with the game or if it's an issue with the Xbox Series controller, because I've had this issue with a lot of games playing on the Xbox Series, is that there is a massive, massive input delay and that the game is not very reactive. So if I'm moving around and I'm moving my character to aim somewhere, I hit the stick and there's about a half-second delay. I hit the stick and then it turns. I don't know if that's an Avowed issue, but it was very, very noticeable, and it just made the controls feel super stiff, and it was very off-putting to me, and it just made me not want to play the game at all. but I stuck through it for a few hours because I was like, maybe I'll get used to it. I ended up getting used to it a little bit, but it still felt super clunky and outdated as far as the movement in the game. Another thing that I was pretty disappointed with were the graphics. Another thing that I was pretty disappointed with in Avowed were the graphics. At a first glance, they don't look too bad, but and it could have just been because I was playing on the Xbox Series S, but the frame rates for me felt rather inconsistent. The characters looked super grainy, like almost sparkly. I know it was all of them. Some of them I think were maybe supposed to look like that, but everything looked very grainy. There was a lot of blur in the game. I just felt like they could have done a better job maybe optimizing for the Xbox Series S. I'm sure you could do some things to make it look better if you were playing on like PC or something like that, but I just feel like the graphics weren't really where they should be for a game coming out that you have to pay $70 for. Another thing that I didn't really like about the game, or was kind of off-putting to me, it didn't feel like the world really reacted to me being in it, which is like a huge thing I feel like for an RPG. Like in Skyrim or Fallout or Oblivion, if I want to walk up to somebody, punch him in the face, and then run away, I can. Like, guards would react to that, the person who I hit would react to that, the world around me would react. In Avowed, essentially you could run up to an NPC, try and punch him, just like that. Try and punch him, nothing happens. Nothing happens. Your punch just goes straight through him. Or you shoot him with an arrow, nothing. Another thing is in Skyrim, the NPCs, they have schedules. So it's when you're in a town or a city, it seems like it's actually alive and that there's people living there, because like they go to work and they wake up and they go to bed and the shops close and things like that. In Avowed, if you sit in a spot and there's a group of NPCs sitting right there waiting around and you wait until night, they're still there. They're not going anywhere. Like they just basically stay put wherever they're at. Another thing I even noticed is I came across this group of grave robbers at one point, and I wanted to just walk up and attack them straight away because, I mean, they're grave robbers. They're bad guys, right? I wasn't able to attack them until after a certain set of dialogue with them, even though they were enemies. And it's like, I would like to just go up and get rid of them from the get-go and just deal with it like that. And then even after the dialogue, there was still another grave robber left, and I couldn't deal with him just because the game didn't want me to. I just feel like the NPCs in the game and the world around you, they didn't feel alive. Like there was just a lot missing. And I feel like for a $70 game, I expect a lot more out of that, especially after the Outer Worlds, where I feel like you got a lot of that. I don't know what happened with Avowed, but it just seems like a huge step back. If the game came out and it was like a $40 game, then I could like see a lot of the stuff making more sense, and like, you're not putting $70 into this game. When you put $70 into a game, you expect something really, really good. Like, why would I go buy Avowed for $70 when I could just go back and play Skyrim, which is going to give me just a more immersive and fun experience where I can basically go and the entire world is mine and everything reacts to me in the world, and I can do whatever I want in the world, essentially. And it just feels like a huge step backwards for Obsidian, and I'm really, really hoping that the Outer Worlds 2 doesn't really follow in the same footsteps as Avowed did, because I feel like Avowed was a huge missed opportunity, and I'm very, very bummed that it turned out the way that I did. And I feel like if I were to give the game a rating, having not finished the game, because it got so boring after about 4 hours of playing it. Like, I was just bored, like mindless. I wanted to get up and go play something else. I'd probably give the game like a solid, like a 5. I'd say, because like it's fun for a little bit, but then it gets boring, and I feel like there's things that could be added to the game to make it better, which, I mean, they could add in updates, you never know, and the game could go from a 5 to a 7, because I mean that's just kind of seems like what developers are doing these days, is releasing a game in a crap state and then updating out of it over a few years to where it then is a fun playable game, kind of like CD Projekt Red with Cyberpunk. So you never know, but right now in the current state of Avowed, I would say save your money on this game. Do not buy it. If you have Game Pass, download it and try it. You might like it. if you've never played Skyrim or had experience with other Obsidian RPGs, then give it a go. You might like it. Me personally, I didn't like it. It's just a huge bummer, and I would say save your money on it. If you have Game Pass, download it, try it. You might like it, but do not spend $70 on this game. It is not worth it. It's like a 5 out of 10 at best, and I'm sure if you go and look at the Steam numbers on it, they would be reflecting that. But anyways, those are my thoughts on Avowed. If you want to go play it for yourself, I highly encourage you not to just take my word for it, because you can go and play it. You could love the game. But yeah, if you enjoyed this type of video, make sure to like, subscribe, turn on the bell. And I also stream on Twitch every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So head on over there, drop a follow over there as well. And I will see you in the next video. Peace.